Okay, going to do a Sunday live, but it's not 6 a.m. And I have quite a few things to talk about. I know I won't go through everything because I came to some conclusions yesterday on a few things, but I got a bunch of slides going. I got a bunch of things I want to talk about, and we're just going to jump right into it. You know, lawn care is just not that difficult. And I think too many people are overthinking a lot of things. And that's why I started this YouTube channel, because I got caught in that loop of thinking I needed to do all this stuff and I really don't. And I just want to have a nice lawn. I wanted a putting green and I wanted nice shortcut grass. So my purpose here is not to say I got the greatest lawn, because I by far do not have the greatest lawn. My lawn, is okay. I'm just trying to show you the progression through this season. And I'm going to talk about what's coming next season, because I'm already looking forward because of some conclusions I came to yesterday. So I'm just showing you what I'm doing to my yard, the progressions it's going through. I'm not telling you what you need to do. I'm not telling you how you need to do it. I'm trying to provide you information, some knowledge, and just some really easy tips to have a great looking lawn. I mean, that's a great looking lawn, like right there. My neighbors walk by, people, touch it and don't think it's real. This probably isn't the best view of my lawn, but it's a view. I don't remember, that's a couple of months ago. And I'm constantly working on things to improve my yard, to make it look better without using a bunch of fertilizer. So I want to get started with something that just popped up in my yard again. And that's worms, worm castings. So this is my Dew Whip. It's a greenskeeper, maintenance guys Dew Whip. It's something that they use to knock the dew off of greens, but this is also something that's really good to use for getting rid of worm castings. Look at that. Okay, this is on my putting green. So you can see how short all the grass is around it, and this thing sticks out like a mountain. So I come across with my Dew Whip and knock those things down and get rid of them. This Dew Whip works great on shortcut grass. If you have tall grass, you're not going to see these worm castings, but you're going to feel them, and you're going to feel them when you're pushing your lawnmower, because your lawnmower is going to bounce around. I don't know if you've ever been pushing your lawnmower along and you've ever wondered why it's bouncing around so much. It happened to me. I leveled my lawn, I redid it, I had it nice and smooth, and within a month after the grass had grown, my lawnmower is bouncing around all over the grass. And I just was like, I just leveled this thing. This thing should be smooth. And then I realized I had a bunch of worm castings, and the worm castings were just, creating lumps in my yard. And it was really driving me nuts. So I started learning about worms, especially when I got my putting green. This is my putting green right here. It's not even mowed here. This was before I mowed. We're going to take a look at it after I mowed later, with some new technology I got going on. And we're going to try that out. So this is my backyard, and these are worm castings right here. This is where I really noticed the problem. I went out there, 2 weeks ago, and it was just like overnight. I just had worm castings everywhere. I haven't had a worm casting in my backyard for months. When I redid my yard, I spent a lot of time with tea seed meal, that's TEA, like tea you drink, and seed meal. And it's just a byproduct of the process of, I believe, crushing the oils out of the tea seeds, whatever. I believe it's saponin is the byproduct. And this is what it does to worms. This is 5 minutes after I watered. You can see all the brown clumps down here of tea seed meal right here. And these worms, it irritates them. It drives them crazy. They want to just crawl out of their skin. So as soon as I water, after applying this, they come out of the ground and they die. So that video of those worms popping out, I had a couple of pictures afterward of them, dead afterwards. Now, this doesn't kill all the worms, but it gets rid of a good number of them. So the worms are back. I have some in my front yard. I don't have a bunch, but I have a few that are coming back. So I got a bag of tea seed meal, and I'm just going to be actively going after worms in my front yard, because on my putting green, they're no good. It hinders mowing. It leaves streaks and all that kind of stuff. And we'll take a look at my backyard with some live view here in a little bit, and I'll show you just kind of what the worm castings have done back there. Because there's something else that I've found out this week, why I'm having a problem with my Hide-A-Cut, my McLean reel mower, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm really aggravated about it. I'm aggravated about a lot of things with McLean, and I'm going to talk about that because I'll get into that in a minute. Anyways, so the worms are driving me nuts already. They're all over the place in the backyard. The front yard, like I said, I only have a few, so I'm going after them. And the tea seed meal, literally, if you apply it heavy enough, and I use a number 8 setting, I applied 25 pounds to my front and backyard. Between the two of them, that's 3,500 square feet. I don't know how much that works out to and all that kind of stuff. I don't even figure it out. I have a setting I use on my spreader that works, and when I have them bad, that's the setting I use, and then I'll back off of it as I just try to keep maintaining it. But if you have a shortcut lawn and you have worm castings and they're a problem, tea seed meal is what's going to fix it. We're going to get back to that spot here in this video, and I'm going to talk about just a couple of things with these worms, and then I'm going to move on. Like I said, spread the tea seed meal down nice and heavy. Water it in pretty good. My sprinklers run for 10 minutes a cycle. I just ran them a normal cycle. And before it finished the second cycle after the one it had just watered, this is what happened. These worms popped out. And this one here is totally able, see this right here, this ring? That means that they're able to have offspring, lay eggs, whatever it is. There's a little ring around them. This one's not quite there yet. These are dead ones. This is the next morning. And what happens is, there's about 7 in this picture right here. You can't probably see all of them because I ran through it pretty quick. I just wanted to show you the after. But I had so many worms in my backyard when I got up the next morning and I went out and looked, that I was like, this is a lot of worms. I hope the birds take care of this. And don't worry, it's not harmful to the birds. This makes a feeding fest for the birds though. And when I came home from work after applying this stuff and all those dead worms that I had in my backyard, they were all gone. There wasn't one worm back there. And the birds had come through. It's mostly robins and things like that, but there's probably blue jays and all that kind of stuff that came through. They cleaned up the whole mess, all gone. I didn't even see the front yard because I didn't get a chance to look at my front yard before I left for work. I don't know how many worms were out there or anything like that. So, but anyways, this will not hurt the birds. It kills the birds. It's a total non-chemical, non-harmful to humans, dogs, people, anything, pets. Tea seed meal is the way to go if you want to take care of the worms. All right. So in my backyard progression I've done over the past few days or months, I had a problem with the area of my yard that just wasn't getting good sprinkler coverage. So last weekend I added this new sprinkler. So I have PVC in my backyard, and I know that's kind of on the out, but my sprinkler system has probably been in my yard since I don't know when. It was here when I got here. I've made some additions to it. It used to just be the one circuit back here, and I've cut it off. And all I'm doing here is, I've made so many patches to this system. I've had breaks and all that kind of stuff. I'm measuring the pipes because I need, I think it was a 5.5 inch piece to replace that spot I cut out. And my problem with that spot was I had so many patches in there, I needed to find enough meat on the PVC to be able to put my fittings in. So when I was cutting it, I was making sure that I was going to have enough pipe left exposed to get the fitting up there for a good fit. Now also, when I was cutting these, I was very careful when I was cutting it, and I kind of used a back and forth motion on the pipe cutter. You probably should use a saw or something like that, because these pipes will break. And because they're weathered and they've been sitting out, for long periods of time and stuff like that. This circuit's pretty new, so I didn't have that problem, but I've had pipes snap when I'm trying to cut them. So I'm really gentle and careful, especially when I don't have a lot of pipe to work with, to make sure when I'm cutting it that I'm not going to snap and break it and then not have enough and then have a real big, repair to do. So I just caution you, if you have an old PVC sprinkler system, be careful when you're cutting the pipes, especially if you don't have a lot of pipe to work with. Maybe use a saw. I mean, I almost got up and got my reciprocating saw, but I'm kind of stupid sometimes. Well, I'm kind of stupid a lot, but I cut it with this cutter, and I just know that I need to work it back and forth, and I need to be very gentle with the cuts when I'm doing it so I don't break the pipes. So that's my biggest advice. The other thing here, like I was saying, is I'm just using a tape measure, and I'm measuring all the connections to make sure I know how much space is going to be used, how much space is going to be left over, and I'm trying to make the pipe and the fittings fit properly. Because what I'm doing here is I'm putting a T in right here, because I'm just teeing off this line, because this is the new line I added, and I removed a sprinkler off of this line, the one that was back in the back corner. I showed that a couple weekends ago, or last weekend, whatever it was, because it was getting too wet in that corner because it's a shady corner. So I needed to add the new sprinkler to this circuit because it's the only circuit that has enough pressure left in it, because my other circuit, the second one right down here, right there, it actually, when I show you over here, it actually has a capped off sprinkler head in the corner right there where I'm actually putting this sprinkler. But I can't put it there because it's going to be too much sprinkler for the water pressure, or too many sprinklers for the water pressure, and it's not going to work properly. The Rainbirds aren't going to, the impact sprinklers I have, they're not going to have enough pressure to make them operate properly. So I can't put it in that circuit. So here it is right here. So if you look down here, you see this little white piece right down here? That's the capped off piece. I mean, I'm literally putting this right in the same spot. And I talk about when you're doing sprinklers or adding sprinklers or digging trenches, don't do it in the summer. And it took me an hour to dig that little trench. And I got my shaker out and I'm shaking this out. Check out how many rocks come out of this dirt that I have here. And the only reason I'm sifting a wheelbarrow full of dirt is because I don't want to put a bunch of rock dirt back where that sprinkler is I put in. Because if I have to dig that thing up and I got to replace it, or whatever I need to do in the future, I want to be able to dig it up a lot easier. Because man, I had let somebody borrow my pick, and it's not that I missed it or anything. It's just when I went to use it, I didn't have it because I had borrowed it out. And I tried to get it back, but I was in the middle of doing this, and I'm telling you right now, this trench was a bear to dig because the dirt was so dry. I mean, look at this. Look at how dry this dirt is. It's really dry. Plus, it's like 90 degrees this day. So when I sifted this dirt out with my shaker, and that's a shaker I made that has a concrete shaker on it, concrete motor shaker. And I'm just filling it around the sprinkler. Get out of the way. And, you know, compacting it in with my foot, of course. And I'm just trying to get it so that the sprinkler is sitting in the proper position. So it's not spraying up too high or down too low. I want it to be level. So I'm working it as I'm putting the dirt in there. And then I just fill the rest of this trench up with that dirt I had. I wasn't going to sift all that dirt. I wasn't going to waste my time doing that because it was quite a bit of dirt, and I had pretty much had it for the day with doing this project. I had many things to do, so I just wanted to get this done. I have some pictures to show you of how this helped that area. But the key points to doing this PVC work is measuring, being careful when you're using this PVC cutter. You know, they really suck, but I have two of them, and I think I used the wrong one. The one I used, I think, was the one that doesn't work that well. But when you're cutting, make sure you be careful. Kind of rock it back and forth. Don't just cut straight through because you can have some breakage of the pipe. And then the second thing is lining up the parts, the connections, so that they're straight. You know, when I put this T in, I'm making sure that it's sticking out straight, you know, from the pipe it's coming on to where it's going to go. And then when I connect the piece that elbows out of there and goes all the way down to where I put the new sprinkler, because I had put the end piece on and the riser ahead of time, I did that on purpose because I'm trying to keep dirt from getting in it. But when you do that, you have to be careful to make sure that when you put your pipe connection together at that elbow, that it's sticking straight up. And you know, it's a long piece, and it's really easy to get it out of whack and stuff like that. You know, normally you would put the piece in and then you would just work your way down and do it that way. But I take shortcuts all the time on things I do, and I pay for it, but whatever. I pay a lot of money for these stupid mistakes I make. So normally you would just do it, you know, piece by piece, working down the line, and then you would flush the system out. I didn't want to go through all that trouble. I just wanted to get this done and get on with it. So I did it this way to keep dirt out of the pipe, and then to make sure that it works properly, getting the pipe straight and square to where I was putting it. Let's see, I think this is the one. Yeah, so if you remember about a month ago, it's actually exactly a month ago, I did the tenacity thing in my backyard. And I mean, this is the current picture right here. This is a month after. And that new sprinkler has really helped out here because this area has gotten a lot better. Even this spot right here, where that tree used to be, is starting to grow in and repair better. It was just lacking water, and this is what it looks like right now today. It still needs some help. I need to put some more seed down here, and I'm going to do that today. But I need to put a little seed down in there to kind of help fill that in. This is the bare area in the middle of my yard that after using a tenacity, had killed a lot of the creeping red fescue. And you know, the fine fescues are really sensitive. I mean, you can see it right here, the tenacity damage. Fine fescue is really sensitive to tenacity, but I mean, look, a month later, this area hasn't filled in very well. It needs some seed. So I'm going to put some seed in there to help get that to fill in. And then this is a little tenacity sad face I had here. I was just spraying for some weeds, and this is it right now. You can't even see where the little burn spots are from the tenacity bleaching in this area here, and it's grown in real well. And then this is the area here that the fine fescue is really giving me a problem, not just from the tenacity, but from the heat and the sun that it gets. You know, fine fescue is a shade grass. This is it right now. You know, I'm really starting to take care of it. And I think you can see worm mounds in here. Look at all these worms in here. But I'm really, you know, trying to pay attention to putting some serious water on this and just kind of help it along to fill in. But I need to put some seed down, and I think I'm actually going to put some Kentucky bluegrass seed in that area there to help it grow. And I'm probably going to get some color mismatch. You know, I'm not really sure what happened here with the darkness and color. I got really dark green and I got lighter green in the middle. I didn't really fertilize, add iron. I mean, I've applied it, but I didn't apply it like double on that side. So I'm not quite sure if that's just a lot of Kentucky bluegrass popping through in that area and more fine fescue down here showing. I'm not sure, but I'm working on correcting that. You know, our weather's been really crazy. We were really, really hot last week, and then, you know, up in the 90s, and then Thursday it just started raining, and it rained real hard. And I think I got some damage in my front yard from the rain. But this is how the fine fescue recovered in a month from tenacity use. And that's all I'm really trying to show you here is, you know, when you get this tenacity bleaching and you're using on your fine fescue or some other grass that may be sensitive to it, it's going to come back, you know, unless you use it on a grass that you're not supposed to use tenacity on. That's why you always read the label to make sure it works. I know for fine fescue, it's going to do this. Kentucky bluegrass, no issues at all. I've had no bleaching, no anything. It kills weeds. It's a good pre-emergent and all that. What else do I have? Oh, my bent grass kills bent grass. Absolutely destroys bent grass. So you don't want to use it on your bent grass unless you're trying to control it. And that's how I control my bent grass, because I get bent grass in my Kentucky bluegrass all the time, and I use tenacity to help deal with that. So I'm just going to do a quick Bermuda update. Oops, I got my picture out of whack here. Let's fix that so you don't got to see the rest of my garage. So you've seen this if you've watched my lives. This is my Bermuda grass project that I'm doing. And remember, I live in Western Washington, and I'm growing Bermuda grass right here. And I don't know how well it's going to work out, but you're going to see right here, November is when I planted those plugs. And this doesn't have a date on it, but some of my time lapses will have dates on them, like right here. This is June, July. And I had sprayed some glyphosate and killed some of this, so I got some more plugs and I planted them in here, and they look dormant when I got them. But, you know, look, it's filling in pretty well. I mean, here it is right at, you know, current. And this is just another time lapse kind of going through, show you what's up. This is when I leveled it, cover the rocks that were in the sand and or in the ground. And then, you know, here it is. It's just growing through really good. And it's actually filled in quite amazingly. You know, for the problems and the issues I had, the weed killer I'd sprayed that killed a bunch of the plugs. You know, I still have these patches that just need to fill in here. But that's my last little area. And it's creeping that way. It's definitely creeping, and I'm hitting it with nitrogen pretty good to get this to fill in. And I'm mowing it at 8 millimeters right now, which is a little over 1/4 of an inch. And I'm mowing it twice a week, and I'm hitting it with nitrogen. So this is the process I went through. I just did 1 foot squares, and I put all the plugs in, and I waited all winter for it to grow back. And it actually didn't start growing until this is the border I put in to help me try to maintain it. I actually need to go out there and edge today. This is April. I mean, they're not growing. You know, I'd done a little leveling here when I was adding the grass seed when I did those trees. I mean, look at this, it's May and it's still barely growing through. And I'm not really sure what it is about this Bermuda and these plugs, but I got a lot of weed grass in it. And I mean, I've taken care of it and I've been pulling it by hand and I've been staying on top of it. But man, the weeds and the types of weed I got in this Bermuda are a lot different than the normal weeds I get. So I'm not really sure what's up with that. But that's my Bermuda project. A few people have asked me about it, you know, wanting to keep tabs on it. And, you know, we've had some really warm weather, which is really helping out in making this grow through pretty good. So I'm just going to move on to a little mow video I have here. I'm just going to let this kind of play through. I want to talk about the low mowing and the differences in cut you're going to get. So at first I'm going to mow my putting green. And this is where my frustration has been for ever since I got my new bed knife. And I've finally discovered why it's doing what it's doing. I mean, it's really just making it so I can't cut my green as low as I used to. I've always cut my green. I've always used the same shims to you know, measure my height of cut and all that kind of stuff. And I've never had any problems until I got this new bed knife. And now that I have this new bed knife, it has nothing to do with the way it sits or you know, the way it's fit on or anything like that. I'm going to get into in just a second what it's about. But this is really, to me, it's cutting to dirt. I mean, what you're seeing is basically the dirt level. That's how low it's cutting right here. I don't know what else to, like I said, I'm going to take the camera outside and I'm going to show you, because this is yesterday. And this whole area down here, this corner, I've had problems with it ever since I did the extension. You know, I've done that grass extension all the way down here. This used to be Kentucky bluegrass all right here, all the way down. And then even down here, all the way through here, all the way down here. This all used to be Kentucky bluegrass. I tore it out because I wanted more putting green. And it was the worst mistake I ever made because I have never got that area to work with the rest of the putting green. And all that happens is it gets scalped. And I'm at the point right now where I'm just going over it with my mower and I'm just cutting it. You know, I don't care. I don't care anymore. I'm going to put Kentucky bluegrass back in there. I need a turnaround spot down here at the bottom of the screen right here. You know, I don't have a turnaround spot and I need one because all that happens is it just tears up the putting green and turn around. I've known it ever since I've done it. I really like the bent grass though. It is really nice grass. So I'm only mowing twice a week right now. Well, I mow on Saturday and Sunday. I mow both days. So Sunday, then Wednesday I mow, and then Saturday I mow, and then Sunday I mow. If I can mow on Tuesday, I do, but I work. And the sun's starting to, you know, go down earlier. So putting green looks like crap. I mean, it's going to recover fine. It's bent grass. It fills in, it grows. But there's a reason why it looks like that, and I'm going to get into that in the next screen after we talk about these low mowing here. Because the other thing I want to talk about on the low mowing side, aside from the putting green and how good it actually really looks when it's got a good mower mowing it properly. This Kentucky bluegrass, you're going to see here the color change. You know, I don't know how tall it is when I'm mowing it. It may be about 1/2 of an inch. You know, I mow it at 8 millimeters, a little over 1/4 of an inch. And you see what's happening here? The difference in green shade. The lower you cut it, the more color you're going to lose. The higher you cut it, of course, the darker green you're going to have. So that's what we got going on right here. And that's all I'm really trying to show in my mowing is the difference in color you're going to get when you low mow. Don't expect to have a really, really super dark green. I mean, the grass is green. It's really green. But you can see right here, you know, this is a perfect example of how much green you lose going from a 1/2 of an inch to a 1/4 of an inch, basically. But don't get me wrong, it looks great. The color is really deep, it's really dark. A lot of people think it's fake. I see many of people, there's a lot of people that walk by that don't even talk to me, don't say anything, and I don't care. I mean, whatever. You know, people have their, you know, privacy they want, and, you know, some people just are quiet, and, you know, but I can see out my front window when I'm sitting on the couch and, you know, watching TV or doing whatever I'm doing. And I see these same people who never say anything to me come by, and I see them kneel down and touch it. You know, I see them looking at it. You know, I know they're curious about it. You know, and it doesn't matter to me. I don't grow the grass for people to say, hey, you got a great yard. You know, I don't do that. This is totally 100% the lawn I've always wanted. And I have it right now. But it's just amazing to me. You know, some people, you know, want to touch it and they say, hey, it looks fake. And then I have other people. I had this guy, you know, walking by the other day, man. He's with his wife and they're walking, and he gets over in the corner right here, and he kind of stops and he looks at the flag, and he kind of does one of these, and he does like that little fake shot with, you know, with the fake ball. And he was like, man, and I could see him saying to his wife, that's great. You know, that just makes me feel good, you know, about the progress I've made, and, you know, that people do appreciate it. You know, I've had Amazon drivers, my neighbors across the street, you know, my neighbor next door, you know, a lot of people compliment me on it, ask me questions, you know, how to get their yard, you know, looking good. And, you know, I just tell them there's no real secret to it. You know, you don't need to put all these stupid chemicals that everybody tells you need to. Iron and nitrogen is all I use. I don't use anything else. You know, I'm going to get to my test results here in a second. I'm going to go to my next slide, and then I'm going to get some test results here because I want to just show you guys what's going on. Let me find the screen. I got so many screens going on in here. Okay, so I broke down and bought me a digital cut of height measuring device. And I have this picture right here because I want you to see what's going on with this bed knife. You know, the reason why I've been setting my cutting height at 2 millimeters and 1/4 of an inch is I was only doing what McLean told me. You know, when I started doing this putting green in my yard and these mowers and all that stuff, I had no freaking clue what I was doing. I didn't even know how to adjust this thing. And I was trying to figure out how to adjust it so that each side was, you know, level. And, you know, it was really stupid, common sense. You know, hey, just use a shim on each side of your mower when you're doing the height adjusting and make sure that they're the same height on each side. So I got me a board. I have a board that I lay my, you know, it's right there. I lay my mower on and I would adjust it, and I'd make sure that the, you know, the bed knife is at the same height on the shims that I was using. And that was how I was measuring it. And they said, you know, you put the shim in there, you know, whatever the shim height is what your cut of height's going to be. I took them for their word. Well, that's not even true at all. And I finally have figured this out, you know, with actually looking at the bed knife and how it's angled and how it, you know, works with the blade and all that stuff. And if you see right here, the blade is cutting up here, but the bed knife lays this low. It's not cutting down here. This is where my problem lies. This is the thickness of the bed knife. And this is where the grass is being cut. So let's see if I can get out of the way here. So if you look at this bed knife, the cutting part is on the top of the bed knife. I always thought it was on the bottom. I never really paid attention, never really looked at it because I was just listening to what McLean told me. So yesterday was when I really figured it out, when I got that digital cutter and I was really looking at this, and I was going, this doesn't make any sense. And then I realized not only was the information that they gave me about adjusting the blade cutting height just terrible, I realized that the bed knife itself, the way it's designed, there's no way that bed knife can cut 3 millimeters because it's 3 millimeters thick. And because it's so thick, and this bed knife is actually thicker than my original bed knife. And that's what I found out is why I'm having this problem with the mowing on my putting green. It's not the actual blade, the bed knife, that's tearing up my yard. It's the dragging of the bed knife, the thickness that's just dragging on the putting green surface, and it's just scraping it, you know, like a bulldozer. So I don't know if you can see it right here, but if you can see what I'm talking about, the top part is where the grass is getting cut. The bottom part is what's dragging on the dirt. And that's what's ruining my cut when I do it. So I'm actually cutting at 4 millimeters right here. That's what I'm setting the blade height to. I'm using the digital meter, and I'm actually, you know, measuring it to where the reel is meeting the bed knife and doing the actual cutting right here. And this, you know, this gauge, it hooks onto the top of the bed knife. See right here. And then this distance between where it's hooked right here and this flat part is the cutting distance. That's 4 millimeters right there. I don't know, that may not be 4, that may be where it was, because when I started it was 5. But this is also helping me even out my cut of height, you know, so I'm not lopsided, you know, too low on one side, higher on the other side, because I've said, you know, I've had that problem where, you know, one side seems like it's higher than the other and it's scalping. So this here, this stupid gauge made me figure out a bunch of stuff that I never really knew or even thought about because of what McLean had told me. So then on top of that, I'm really pissed off because this bed knife, the way it's oriented, is creating my problem. This is supposed to be a greenskeeper. You know, it's supposed to cut at 3 millimeters, and it won't. I don't think there's any way you can, because what I'm doing right now, I'm going to go show you in just a minute. This bed knife is dragging on the ground where you're cutting the grass. And there's just a bunch of other things with this McLean lawnmower that I've just come to the conclusion that, you know what, I'm dumping this thing as cutting my putting green. I'm going full board Toro or John Deere Greensmaster mower that has a what the heck is that thing called? The groomer attachment. I've been looking at their bed knives and how they sit and all that kind of stuff. It's much different, and it's more set for a greenskeeper. And you know what? I know it's going to cost me a lot of money, and I know everybody's going to say, oh, buy a used one. I don't buy anything used. Everything I buy is brand new. I hardly ever buy anything used because I don't want somebody else's, you know, junk. And that's just kind of the way I look at it. You know, if I didn't buy it, I don't know what's done to it. It's somebody else, you know, owned it. I don't know what's been done to it. And the ones I've looked at online are even like, I wouldn't even pay $10 for something that they want $2,000 for. So I've just had it with McLean. I ordered a new bed knife and a new backlapping kit. Because even the backlapping kit I have a problem with. You know, when I first got it, the chain was too tight. And the chain was so tight when I used it, it snapped one of the gears off of the plates. And I had somebody at work weld it, and I used it a couple of times and it snapped again. And I had another guy work, weld it, and then it just snapped again. And he said he was going to do a better job. He was going to drill it out. He was going to get a deep weld, but it just isn't working. I actually ordered a new one. This is before I decided I wasn't going to keep this McLean. I mean, I'll probably keep it. This mower's fine if you want to use it at 8 millimeters above, half-inch cut, quarter-inch cut. It works fine. I still have a little bit of issues with cutting it at the 8 millimeters I'm cutting at right now, and I'm going to show you about that in a second. But I called McLean on Monday. I ordered parts. I ordered a new bed knife, and I ordered this backlapping kit. And they tell you if it's on back order, if they have the part or they don't have the part. And they tell you when it's going to, it usually ships in 2 days. It was supposed to ship on Wednesday, which means perfect. I'll get it by Saturday. Yeah, this thing didn't even ship until Friday. And I'm just had it with McLean. Their information, their advice. I really feel like, this thing's made in the USA. I'm a big supporter of, I'm a proud American. I support US products. But you know what? My bottom line as of right now is this is garbage for a greenskeeper. And I'm only talking greenskeeper. This is not a greenskeeper. This is a piece of crap as a greenskeeper. And I pretty much had it with it. So those are my reasons that I have more. I've talked about the adjusting brackets right here. I've replaced these a couple of times because they strip out. There's just a lot of things on this mower that I feel could be better quality. And this bed knife is my biggest problem because the difference in thickness is really just rubbed me the wrong way. So I was really pissed off yesterday after that mow. Anyways, I'm going to put on something while I make some changes so I can go out in the yard. I haven't done this before. Where is it? Is it this one? Yeah, so this is my progression in my front yard. And I'm just showing this because I did some leveling and all that kind of stuff. Let's see if I can get this thing going here while you're watching that. So this is just basically the time lapse from, May when I did the sand leveling on the putting green. But I also had planted this grass down here, the Kentucky bluegrass. I added this retaining wall. And this is just the progress over time. No, I guess that was the end. It's already started over. That was just a quick video. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and try this out here. All right. My little setup here. Gonna go over here and open the garage door. So there's that McLean right there. It kind of ticked off of that thing. So I don't really have any visual on what's going on down here, but this is the putting green right here. And this is just kind of how it's looking after that last mow. And it was definitely at 4 millimeters on that cut, but look at this right here. I've never had that problem right here before. Hold on, I'm just trying to get this thing to work. Okay. And then if I do a view like this, I can't really see what you're seeing. So, I mean, it's cut pretty short. I mean, you could see it here. You know, so but this is just the kind of the damage that it's done here. This is a bad spot right here that I've been dealing with forever. I mean, like, look at how bad it scalped it right here. And I just kept mowing. I didn't even care. So this is my side yard area. I know, so I don't have my flag in. So this is, you know, how the cut turned out. Like I said, it was 4 millimeters. And then over here on the Kentucky bluegrass, I walked out here yesterday and I had a bunch of bad spots here. And I don't know if it was because of how wet it was. It rained really good the last 2 days, and I got this damage here. I mean, to tell you the truth, it looks like iron staining, but I mean, these are my footsteps from walking in it like I had some sort of, you know, weed killer or tenacity or something on my, more like glyphosate on my shoes. And it's like all the way through here. And then I have this bad spot right here that I don't even know what happened here. It's not a water coverage thing. So I got some damage going right here with this part of my lawn. And like I said, we had some really hot weather and then we had some really hard rain. Let's see if you can see the rest of the yard there. So, and the putting lean, it looks great in the areas. I mean, even my flat areas over here. I mean, look at this. Turned out terrible. Never had dragging over here. Like I said, I actually set it with that digital gauge at 4 millimeters just to see what would happen. Because I realized where it was set at before, it was like 5.5 millimeters. All right, so I'm going to cross over to the backyard. I'll show you what's going on back there. This is my side patch green grass area. And, you know, it's looking pretty good. All right, so that should be working now. I forgot to change over my microphone off of the handheld there. But it's working now. All this technical stuff. I pulled up the evapotranspiration map just to put it out there. This is just the daily right here. I could put it on the weekly. You know, we're not looking that bad, I don't think, this week as far as evapotranspiration goes. Let's see here. .19 inches. So we're gonna need a little extra water, but I gotta let my lawn dry out, see what's going on with those bad spots. I'm not sure how much you saw of those bad spots I had, but they were definitely an issue. So that's evapotranspiration for this week for everybody in the Western Washington. If you care, It's just a good sign of what you need to do for watering. I have my soil tests. I'm just going to show this real quick and then get out of here. On the right here is my soil test numbers, and on the left here is the My Soil Kit, or soilkit.com. The difference in the two is this is the ion exchange resin. This is Mehlich 3. On the left is a Mehlich 3, the soilkit.com. My Soil, there's a lot of things that are just inaccurate about this right off the top. There is no real method of measuring the amount of nitrogen in your soil. There's no research proven method that works. There's some tests out there that they use and they say work, but there's no actual data that actually shows that what they're measuring is accurate, is actually telling you what number it is. So when My Soil Kit tells you your nitrogen level is 10.75, how do they know? They don't. I don't even know how they get this number. I know there's an extraction that they try to do, but there's no actual good data on whether that extraction method is worth the numbers that they put out. And that's why on the soilkit.com, you don't see a nitrogen number because there's no test for it, no accurate testing for it. But it does have pH. So the pH came in pretty close, 6.2 on My Soil and 6.1 on soilkit.com. There's an important number that you don't get on the My Soil Kit that you get on the Mehlich 3 kit, soilkit.com, the CEC number, cation exchange capacity. And a lot of people don't know what that is. I don't really understand it fully 100%. What I do know is what I've learned and read on it. And I'm strictly going off of memory, so don't hold me to the total accuracy on it. But as far as I understand it, it's how well your soil holds fertilization or fertilizer, the nutrients. And 16.5 is actually a pretty good number. They say, between, I think it's 12 and 25 is a good number. The lower the number, the less ability your soil has to withhold nutrients. And all that's meaning is that a lot of nutrients, I believe, don't become really available for uptake, or like I said, I read up on this a long time ago, but the lower the number, the worse the nutrient levels, the soil's ability to hold nutrients is. I have a good number here. 16.5 is relatively good. It's not the greatest, it's not the worst, it's just okay. The lower the number generally means you have a real clay soil, and the nutrients don't get held very well in the clay soils. That's why, aerating and adding sand and those sorts of things to help try to loosen that up are going to help you out. We'll look at potassium. These are all ppm numbers. Now I understand that both these tests are done on a different process, and these numbers are different. So they're really hard to compare. But what we can compare is My Soil Kit says I'm high on potassium. This is my backyard, by the way. Potassium, I'm at 71.34. Oh, actually, it says it's optimal. I'm sorry, I was looking at a different number. Soilkit.com, Mehlich 3 testing says 205. That's 100 points above what it's supposed to be, or what's normal. My backyard, I don't add any fertilizer, any nutrients. Never have. Haven't added anything back there in a long time. The only thing I've ever put down in my backyard is nitrogen and iron. So potassium, again, it's pretty much naturally occurring in your yard. There's really no reason to add potassium to your lawn. If you have a deficiency, of course, you got to add potassium. I don't have a deficiency. And even if this was, say, at 20, if I didn't have a visible reason in my yard to suspect I was low in nitrogen or potassium, I need to add it, I wouldn't even worry about it if it was at 20. If my grass is looking great and there's no Visible damage from a low potassium. I'm not going to add potassium, but look here, I'm high. You know, my soil kit says I'm optimal. Mehlich 3 says I'm high. You know, who do you believe? Mehlich 3 is who you would believe in this instance here, because the My Soil test is totally, it's just not accurate. And these numbers are going to help you understand it. Phosphorus. Let's see, phosphorus. Here we are right here, phosphorus. 157 over here on the Mehlich 3 test. 157, it's supposed to be around 30, extremely high. Over here on My Soil, oh, they said it's high too. 27 is what they got. They say it's supposed to be between 5 and 11. Okay. Yeah, my phosphorus is high back there. Again, I have never added phosphorus to my backyard. Never added potassium, never added phosphorus. Haven't added anything that even has it in there. I have 100% nitrogen, 100% iron. No potassium, no phosphorus in any fertilizer to ever put back there. And look at how high I am in both of those. And I'm just showing you these numbers here because I'm trying to help you understand that, you know, all these channels that are telling you all these things you need to add constantly are not helping your lawn. They don't help in the greening of your lawn. They don't help in anything that has to do with your lawn looking green, first of all. Secondly, you probably don't need it because I've talked about this before. Your nitrogen to phosphorus to potassium uptake is all dependent upon your nitrogen, and it runs in a 4-1-2. So for every 4 parts nitrogen being taken up, the grass is only going to uptake 1 part of phosphorus and 2 parts of potassium. It doesn't matter how much phosphorus you pump into it, it's never going to take any more phosphorus or potassium than the amount of nitrogen that it's able to uptake. So I'm probably not explaining that very well, but the basic bottom line is if you're adding any kind of fertilizer that the ratio is any different than 4-1-2, which could mean, you know, 18, 8, 16, something like that, or I'm sorry, 24. I'm trying to get my numbers in my head here. But, you know, 4-1-2 is the basic numbers you're looking at. 4 nitrogen, 1 phosphorus, 2 potassium. Your grass can't take it up any different than that. So it doesn't matter how much phosphorus you dump in your lawn, how much potassium you dump in your lawn. The only thing it's going to do to you is create a problem. And potassium especially, it's not going to prevent anything from happening in your lawn. Don't believe any of it. It's not going to prevent heat stress. It's not going to prevent anything. Potassium is only going to create damage in your lawn if you have too much of it and you keep applying it. And that's why a lot of these lawn care guys, when they're talking to you about their yards and their stuff like that, they have high potassium because they add so much potassium and then they end up having disease and stuff like that. And they're putting propiconazole down and all these different azoxystrobin, all these different things to help prevent or fight against disease. Let me see here. Let me see if I can scroll. So a couple other things I just wanted to talk about on here. And then I'll just close this out, is the magnesium. Yeah, magnesium. Over here it says it's low. On my Mehlich 3, it says I'm high. Okay. I know my iron's probably high because I put a lot of iron down. My manganese, it says I'm pretty good down here. I mean, it's a little high, but over here, manganese, it actually says I'm a little high down here too, which is, you know, okay, that's great. It's telling the story. What else I got down here? Boron, don't really care about. I believe over here it says my boron is low. Over here it says my boron is almost right on. It's a little high, barely high. But I don't care about boron. Copper, really high. What does copper say over here? Well, it says it's high too, but just barely high. Over here it says, on Mehlich 3, it says it's considerably high. So that's just comparing the numbers. And I only did this soil test to compare these two things to just kind of show, you know, why a Mehlich 3 is something a little better to go by than a My Soil kit. Don't buy a My Soil kit. You know, they're the same cost for the different testing procedures, testing methods. My Soil is trying to sell you a product. They're trying to sell you fertilizers. They're telling you what fertilizers to buy. They're trying to get you to buy them from them. They're just selling you a product. They're also selling you a service. That's not even worth the money you pay for it. That's my only point here, is this My Soil kit it is not a very good or trusting kit. Mehlich 3, soilkit.com's testing procedure. The reason why it's a good process or a good testing process is because this is what researchers used, you know, soil scientists and that sort of thing. You know, that's what they're using to do their test results. That's, you know, when they're constantly doing their testing and all this stuff, when they're, you know, checking for, you know, low of this, or they're adding this, or they're, you know, trying to, you know, find out how much of this, you know, is too much or not enough, what's going to cause problems to your lawn. You know, this is where they get the results. And a lot of them use Mehlich 3. You know, there's Mehlich 2, there's Mehlich 1. They all give a little bit different response they use different testing because they have a better accuracy at certain things other than others. But realistically, if you're not having a problem in your yard, you don't need to be adding all these products. Nitrogen and iron is pretty much going to drive the bus on everything that's going on in your yard. Phosphorus is going to be naturally occurring and naturally available, and potassium, same thing, but you don't really need a lot of either one of them. And you know, the whole thing about adding it and getting your roots to grow bigger and better. If it's already in your yard, your grass is going to only take up what it can take up based on the amount of nitrogen it has available. So, and then the nitrogen needs sulfur to uptake, for the plant to uptake it as well. So, you know, there's a big combination of things. You know, the big things you really need to worry about in your yard is your nitrogen. Having sulfur to help your nitrogen uptake for your grass is going to be really important. And for me out here in Western Washington, I like to know my pH. I still feel my pH is too low in my backyard. That's why I'm using urea nitrogen. I'm trying to help get that pH level up. My front yard, it was a little low. It was at 5.9 at the starting of the year. Now I believe it's like a 6.5 or 6.7, which I'm getting happy with because I'm trying to help prevent moss from growing in my yard. pH is a big factor in moss, you know, amongst other things, you know, but pH is one of those things, ways that I can help prevent moss, along with the iron use and stuff like that. But you know, when you use sulfur is going to lower the pH in your soil, so you got to watch out for those things. So that's why knowing just the basic information on a lot of these, you know, different nutrients that you're putting in your lawn is really, really important. You know, there's basic understandings and basic things you need to know. But if your lawn is growing and you're adding nitrogen and a little bit of iron every now and then, but basically nitrogen, you know, nitrogen is driving the bus on everything else. And if you start running out of phosphorus, you start running out of potassium, your lawn is going to tell you, it's going to say, I'm low on phosphorus, I'm low on potassium, but you know what? Generally speaking, those nutrients you're never going to be low on unless you just have a deficiency in your yard or your soil. And you'll see it in your grass response to it. And you'll be able to look it up and you'll be able to find out, or do a soil test, and you'll be able to find out, you know, hey, my grass is, you know, turning, you know, purple leaves and that sort of thing because, or purple leaves, purple blades and stuff like that because I'm low on potassium or phosphorus or whatever it is. So those are the important things I'm just trying to help you understand here. Along with low mowing, problems with my McLean. You know, I'm not worried about my putting green so much because that thing's going to recover no matter what. And I'm going to do some fixes on it anyways this year. I'm probably going to get ready to spray a big part of it with tenacity and kill it off and get ready to start planting some bent grass because I'm ready to fix some of those areas over there. But grass is always going to grow back. And if it doesn't grow back, I'll just throw some seed down and it will grow back. It's easy to take care of, easy to maintain. Having a nice lawn is really easy to do. You don't really need to, you know, push a lot of these things unless you really want to. I mean, you can push all these products, you know, into your yard. You know, you can go to the Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, and you can buy all these different products to put in your lawn. You know, for the most part, your lawn's going to be fine. But once you start adding a little bit too much of this or that, you might start having some problems. So you just kind of be careful with what you're doing. My recommendation is nitrogen program. I apply nitrogen once a month. I'm going to start going on a once every 2 week kick here for a while, just to kind of show you the whole greening effect of it, because that's what a lot of these YouTube guys are doing, is they're just pushing nitrogen all the time and iron, but they're also pushing a lot of other stuff, and they're telling you that this other stuff that they're pushing into their lawn is what's making their lawn look green, but it has nothing to do with it. It's just the amount of iron and salt and nitrogen they're putting in their lawns that's doing the job of getting the green going. Nitrogen, iron, sulfur, magnesium, or manganese, those are the basic keys in a green lawn. Those are the products or the nutrients that your lawn needs to get really green, to provide the chlorophyll to make that green color. On top of that, a good grass cultivar. Some cultivars, like the bent grass, it doesn't get dark green. It just doesn't. It's always a lighter green. So, knowing those things on top, at the beginning is also important when you're trying to decide what seed you want to do, what color grass you want to have, and all that sort of stuff. So anyways, I'll stop talking. I got my point across about my McLean. I've really had it with my McLean, only as far as a greenskeeper goes and cutting at 1/4 of an inch and lower. I just really have a big issue with it. Sorry about the glitch on the live. Trying to walk around, I thought I had that worked out, but I guess I did. So anyways, I hope everybody has a great day, and I hope you have a good week this week, and I'll come back and have another video at some point.